Hey guys, welcome to Political Brawl. This is Matt Miller, and Congressman Jamie Raskin is grandstanding on ICE deportations. Brandon Gill takes him down and really tears apart his argument very well. And it's very clear that Jamie Raskin doesn't believe that the United States has the right to enforce its immigration law using ICE just like every other president in the past has. And it's very clear from what he says here that he doesn't understand that the Democrats created this impossible situation, that this mess really that President Trump is trying to clean up right now effectively and aggressively. Biden's open border for 4 years let in over 10 million illegal aliens, and sanctuary cities in blue states continue to harbor people who broke our immigration laws and make it difficult for law enforcement to enforce our laws. So this is a Democrat manufactured problem, and now they're criticizing and attacking Republicans for the way that we're trying to clean it up. Again, this is an unprecedented situation caused by the Democrats, and Trump is taking massive action to try to correct the situation. Let's take a look at what Jamie Raskin said.
Beautiful words in the Constitution, maybe in the English language, are due process. It's due process that protects our rights and our freedoms from the arbitrary power of government officers who might be completely convinced of the righteousness of what they're doing, but they might not care about your rights. And they may not care about your freedoms, and they might be wrong about the facts. One of my colleagues said when we got into this debate last time to me, well, wait, you're not saying you support due process for guilty people, are you? And that's the whole point. We don't know if they're guilty until there's been due process. So yes, we've got to have due process for everyone. That's what the Constitution talks about. In our first colloquy about the first bill this morning, Mr. Chairman, we heard members saying that due process was just too excruciatingly prolonged and protracted when we were talking about a case where a guy kicked a dog, spent 3 days in jail, and then was deported from the country. And yet again, we hear from the distinguished gentleman from Texas that due process just takes too long. It just goes on for too long. Look, this bill is a
it's because you let these people
on due
in.
Process. When you think of the government officials who are going to be wielding this lawless power, don't think of the leaders that you love and know the most, the ones who are inviting you to dinner. Think of the ones you loathe and fear the most, because those are the ones you will be empowering also to designate people at whim as terrorists and as drug traffickers. And these wild accusations have led to devastating consequences. Take the case of Jose Reyes Barrios, a 36-year-old professional soccer player and coach who was an asylum seeker from Venezuela, awaiting his asylum hearing. Unbeknownst to his family, he was swept up and flown out of the country to that famous torture prison in El Salvador as part of the government's dragnet campaign against Tren de Aragua. He had no criminal record. He had no criminal charges, but he was sent to the mercy of a brutal dictator in El Salvador simply because he's got a tattoo on his right arm, which was mistakenly associated with Tren de Aragua. In fact, the tattoo is of a soccer ball topped with a crown, which signifies the soccer club Real Madrid.
Okay, one sec here. So, Brandon Gill is about to fire back, so hang on for that. It's going to be really good. But I just want to say, Jamie Raskin is so smug and so self-righteous as he's saying all this, and he's acting as if his party and the Biden administration did not create this horrible situation that allowed drug cartels to conduct drug trafficking into our country seamlessly because our border was open. They conducted human trafficking. Hundreds of thousands of people went missing or were harmed by this. And he's acting like the Republicans who are trying to correct and restore order are the bad guys. And where was all of this humanitarian concern during the border crisis when people were getting trafficked, going missing, they were dying? This is your fault, conclusively. This is the Democrats' fault. They created this situation, and now they're leveraging it. They're leveraging the mess they made to attack Republicans, to attack Trump for trying to restore law and order and sovereignty, restoring the sovereignty of our border that we have as our right as a nation state. It's ridiculous that they do this and they act like they have the moral high ground in this situation, because they absolutely do not. Let's keep watching.
He had no legal process. He had no judge. He had no jury. He had no right to counsel. He had no opportunity to present evidence or to hear the charges against him. He had no opportunity to cross-examine. He had no due process. Look at one other case, Andre Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist and barber who fled Venezuela's brutal Maduro regime, which was persecuting him for being anti-gay and for speaking up for free speech in Venezuela. He'd passed his credible fear interview in our asylum process. His asylum claim was pending when he was swept up in the government's campaign because of his benign tattoos of two crowns, one symbolizing his beloved father, one symbolizing his beloved mother. And that became the basis for his removal, with a unilateral administrative power to declare somebody somehow at odds with the government. Romero missed his asylum hearing because he was at the torture prison in Salvador. 60 Minutes reviewed his media posts going back for more than a decade and could not find a shred of evidence linking him to a gang activity, and yet he was described as a gang member. To this day, the government has never brought forward any evidence. He's had no constitutional due process whatsoever. And our friend from Texas wants to make this the law. He wants to make this official, that the government can declare anybody a gangbanger or a terrorist without any legal process at all and kick him out of the country. Come on. This is the Judiciary Committee of the United States House of Representatives.
All right. So first of all, before we get to Brandon Gill's response, this guy is such a clown. And I just want to say that he's 100% wrong about this repeated line, due process, due process. Take a look at the Heritage Foundation. I know this is the liberals' favorite think tank here in D.C. They had a great piece showing and explaining why due process is different for people who entered this country illegally, people who have overstayed visas, as well as people who are here seeking asylum and came seeking asylum during the Biden administration that now can be asked to be removed with executive power. So I encourage you guys to go ahead and take a look, and I'll leave a link to this in the description. I'm not going to read the whole report here. I don't want to, do that to you guys, but these are the key takeaways. Federal immigration law and court precedents make clear that aliens do not have full access to all of the constitutional rights afforded to citizens. That is the main one here, that these people, they talk about due process in our legal system. If you fall into this category, you have a different level of due process that is afforded to you. You're not an American citizen, and it applies differently to you because of your immigration status. Immigration status prohibit review of specific federal actions by federal courts and limit which federal courts have jurisdiction over particular alien claims. And federal courts that assume jurisdiction over banned, prohibited, or limited claims by aliens are violating federal law, and the Supreme Court should tell them so. So, yes, and we know that the activist judges are overstepping by getting involved in these situations. If we scroll down here, this sums it up very well. So, as federal immigration law and court precedents make clear, aliens do not have full access to all of the constitutional rights afforded to citizens. In immigration cases, which are civil and not criminal proceedings, aliens have only certain limited due process rights as defined by Congress and prior Supreme Court precedent. So let's get to Brandon Gill's response, which I think is right on the money.
I wish Democrats had been as worried about gangs over the last administration as they are about a gang definition in this bill. Because of Democrat policies, Tren de Aragua has an established presence from coast to coast in our country. Nearly every single day, we hear stories about the terror wrought by these heinous criminals. In August, ICE arrested a Tren de Aragua member with an active warrant in Bogota, where he was sentenced to 7 years for trafficking and possessing illegal firearms. He had been caught and released at the border during the Biden-Harris administration. In May, ICE arrested multiple Tren de Aragua members who were involved in a mass shooting at a Chicago house party last December. And these arrests are not limited to Tren de Aragua members. Earlier this year, ICE arrested a gang member from El Salvador with U.S. convictions for sexual indecency with a child, failure to register as a sex offender, illegal reentry, and illegal entry. ICE also arrested an MS-13 gang member with a homicide conviction and a Sureños 13 gang member with 6 convictions for drug possession, 3 convictions for resisting arrest, 2 convictions for domestic violence, and 2 convictions for assault. These are the crimes that are the obvious result of Democrats' open border policies. So today it's no surprise that they'd rather attempt to poke holes in a clear definition rather than own up to their past mistake. The definition of criminal gang here is straightforward. It clearly delineates the requirements to be considered a gang, and it closely tracks another gang definition already in statute, the definition of a criminal street gang in 18 U.S. Code 521. Federal immigration officials shouldn't have to wait for an illegal alien gang member to harm, kill, rape, or terrorize an American citizen before expediting the removal of that dangerous foreign national. This is a common sense provision that creates safer streets for every American and closes a gaping loophole in current law. But if we want to talk about how these determinations are often being made, we hear rhetoric about gang tattoos. Let's look at this gang tattoo here. 666 on the forehead of an illegal alien, Antonio Israel Lazo.
Disgusting.
Quintanilla.
What is he, a Satanist?
I simply do not want an illegal alien with 666 tattooed on his forehead in my country, and I don't think that most Americans would disagree with me there. As we've talked about earlier, this law does comport with due process. There are opportunities for illegal aliens to appeal decisions, deportation decisions. But if Democrats would like to explain why this illegal alien with 666 tattooed on his forehead should be given free rein in the interior of our country, they are welcome to. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
So I'll speak for myself here. I, as somebody who supports President Trump and his immigration policy, do not want to see people who are wrongfully being deported. I don't want to see these cases where people are being swept up and they are wrongfully targeted. But I acknowledge the reality that this messy situation was caused by the Democrats and by Biden's border policy, or lack thereof. And it's kind of like when you throw a frat party or a soiree of some sort, and you invite people that you invite people that you know are chill or that they're at least not crazy maniacs or drug addicts or something like that. You're going to have a fun time. And you want to know most of the people in the room, or at least know that they're safe. So you invite the people that you want to be there. And all of a sudden, one of your frat brothers invites, 3 dozen people who you just don't know straight off the street, right? And it's a total free-for-all now. All these people are in the house and that you have no idea who they are. You don't know if they're bringing drugs, heroin, or if somebody's bringing a knife. Maybe these are dangerous people. But all of a sudden, you've created a situation that was controlled and safe to a complete question mark. It could be total chaos. And you want to know who's in your house. You want to know who's coming to your party. And what do you have to do next? You probably have to start kicking people out. And there's too many people. Let too many people that you don't know into the party that are unvetted. And now it's a dangerous situation. I mean, you see bars and clubs do it too. They control who comes in and out, and they pat people down. They check their IDs. They make sure that there's not underage people. So why are we not allowed to do this as a sovereign country like every other country in the world can do? Right. And in that party example, you might end up throwing out people that are perfectly fine, just there to have a good time. There might be perfectly nice people to meet. But in order to control the situation that your frat brother created by inviting all these unknown people in, you have to kick these people out. It's just common sense policy. It's the hard decision. It's the hard thing to do. But you didn't cause the problem. You were trying to throw a party that was under control with people you knew and trusted, and somebody ruined that. Again, I want to make clear, I don't want to see American citizens or people who are not being properly targeted, thrown out and deported or sent to detention facilities. And I think ICE is taking the pains to make sure as much as they can that they are targeting the right people. They're incentivized to do that. I mean, it's going to be chaos and a disaster if they are actually going after all of just brown people like the Democrats are claiming, but it's just not true. We're going after people who we've identified that they've entered this country illegally or they're currently here in an illegal way that we have the right to deport them. And the Democrats are clearly leveraging this foggy situation, this chaotic situation, to demonize their political opponents. I am pro-immigration. I love immigrants, and I come from a family of immigrants. You know, my great-grandparents came from Ellis Island, and I think that America should be a country of immigrants. But we need to have a legal process for that. We need to make sure that cartels and other nefarious actors, terrorists, are not having an open door to our country, coming to terrorize our communities or make them crappier by introducing drugs, by bringing human trafficking. This is common sense policy. So I want to hear what you guys think in the comments. Please let me know. What did you think of Brandon Gill's retort to Jamie Raskin? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.